Hashem, we are learning Taanis Daf Yud Zayin. We left off on Daf Tez Zayin Amid Base, 2 lines before the bottom of the Amid. We are referring back to the opening Mishnah of the Perek. As we mentioned, there is only one Mishnah that Ravina and Avashi, or the people that later put the Gemara together, they left it that way, a Mishnah and the whole Gemara. First, we're going to learn about the opinion of Rebbe Yehuda regarding the first 2 of the additional 6 blessings in the final 7-day fasts, and the Zechronos and Shoifros. Says Rabbi Yehuda that we don't need to say it. What he means is that we dafke don't say it. We're going to have sources for Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara in Daf Yud Zayin on the top is going to point out something amazing. You have to pick up on the nuance that when it comes to the closing words of the bracha that we make, in which we speak about Shmuel the prophet, that bracha ends with the word Shomeya Tze'aka. That Hashem is the one who hears the Tze'aka. The Tze'aka could mean crying out, calling out. When we speak about Elyahu Navi, how Hashem responded to his prayers on Har HaKarmel, we end the words with the word Shomeya Tefilla, not Shomeya Tze'aka. Tze'aka, Tefilla, and we'll see that there were other versions that reversed the Tefilla and the Tze'aka for Shmuel and Elyahu, the opposite way that we have it in our Mishnah. The bulk of today's daf is going to speak about Kohanim. A Kohen is not allowed to do the avodah while he is intoxicated with wine. That's a pasuk in the Chumash. Therefore, we're going to begin to learn that Kohanim, especially Kohanim, that know which mishmar they come from, theoretically, which base of what day they will serve in. If the cycle continues nowadays, there's no temple, but if Mashiach comes now, so they're going to go according to the original cycle, such a Kohen may not drink wine during that period of time, because Mashiach can come right now. Enoch, as we learned, if Mashiach is going to come down the way Rashi says, the way Tosfos says, or the way the Rebbe says, L'kula alma, if we will merit, and we all merit in a miraculous way, the building of the 3rd temple will happen very quickly. All of a sudden, the Kohen will be called to do the avodah. Now, truth be told, there are certain details for which you need time. For example, to get rid of tumas meis, you need to have a whole 7-day period. On the 3rd day and on the 7th day, you have to have the ashes sprinkled on you. But the rule is that if the majority of the people, as is now, are tamei, tuma, choye b'tzibur, tuma, hutra b'tzibur, until when there'll be the option of becoming tahar, they're going to do the avodah b'tuma. But they're not allowed to be intoxicated. So we're going to see, is there a prohibition on Kohanim nowadays not to drink wine? So if Mashiach comes this moment, they won't be in a state of intoxication. It's a machloikes tanoim, and similar to that, we're going to make a comparison to another unique rule regarding Kohanim, and that is that the common Kohen must take a haircut once in 30 days. Now, there's a pasuk in Yecheskel, he's not allowed to completely shave the hair off his head, but on the other hand, he may not grow long hair. He can't grow a pera roish. And that means a chup in Yiddish, or it means, as we'll see, if you don't take a haircut in 30 days, after that it's already called long hair. Is there any restriction on Kohanim nowadays not having that long hair? No one holds to that. Why not? Why don't we say at least consistently that those who hold that a Kohen may not drink wine, Mashiach can come, he'll have to be in a non-state of intoxication. Maybe he should also have to go around with that hair, which is cut 30 days to 30 days the most. But we don't say that. The Gemara is going to explain why. We're going to have a concept of ein hekesh lemechza. There are certain lemudim. There's one of the ways that we learn halachis in the Torah is by comparing one case to the other. When you make such a comparison, you can't go halfway. We'll see how that will apply to our sugya. And on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, the Gemara is going to quote a section of this famous now Megillas Taanis. This Megillah, this booklet, that was a record of the oral Torah before any of the oral Torah was recorded. That's why it's not called a Sefer, it was called a Megillah. And all of the days in which the sages understood them to be minor holidays during the times of the second Beis HaMikdash were declared to be days in which minimally you may not fast. Some of them you may not even eulogize if, God forbid, someone passed away and was buried. During that period, you can't even give a eulogy. All as a means of the celebration of that Yom Tif. We're going to learn about two such Yomim Tovim. The two that we will learn about today actually are not days, but there's like a period from the first day of Nisan until the 8th day of Nisan. Va'ad B'chlal, that is the time of Yom Tiv. Then we will learn there's a period from the 8th of Nisan until after Pesach, or until the last day of Pesach, days of Yom Tov. We'll see what happened. Why did they declare it a Yom Tov? Why did they have to record that from the first day of Nisan to the 8th? The first day of Nisan is Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is Yom Tov anyway. Why from the 8th until the last day of Yom Tov? Yom Tov is anyways a biblical holiday, and a lot more chevra. So let's go again to Daf Tes, Zayin Amid Beis, 2 lines before the bottom of the Amid. The Gemara is referring back to the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo Yehoyed Tzarech Loimer Zechroinois and Shoifrois. Lo Yehoyed Tzarech literally means it was not necessary for the 2 first of the 6 additional blessings to mention Ata Zoicher, right? And Ata Nigleisa. And really the way we are understanding, as most Rishonim explain these words, Rabbi Yehuda holds that they dafke did not add a bracha of Zechroinois and Shoifrois. And the Mishnah spoke out the other brachas that he gave in their place. Amar Rab Ada, from where? From Yafai. The bin Yafai, my Talmud Rabbi Yehuda, that these 2 are not said. So he answered, he explained, because Rabbi Yehuda holds, Lefi she'ein oimrim zechronis v'shoifrois, Daf Yud Zayin on the top, Elam, b'rosh Hashanah, u'b'yoyvlois, u'b'shas melchama. When do we say zechronis and shoifrois? Only to the exclusion of all other times on Rosh Hashanah. That we learned a lot about this in Rosh Hashanah, and on Yom Kippur of the Yovel year, right? We had that Gezeira Shava, if you remember, in the last Masechta, and now we're learning something new. And when we were, at war, look inside Rashi 3 lines before the top, from the top of the Amid, Ubishas Mulchama, and as it says, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Sha'akol Nidvari. That v'chi sovayu mulchama ba'artzachem ala tzarat tzoyred eschem psukim in parshas ba'aloischem, right? Uskata b'chatzoy tzrois, etc., etc. And there we also add in the Shemona Esrei zechroinois and shoifrois. Says Rashi, v'lo yodeinon, I don't know, or we don't know, mina ispirish. Where is it written? Where do we find, other than here, the oimer brachas that we add in the Shemona Esrei during a war? Additional brachas, and including, look inside Rashi, Psuke, Malchiyoi Zechronis V'Shoifres V'Shas Mochama. I don't know where it's written. Okay, but it's a fact. At least that you have this source. This is the source. Hold on. Who ever spoke about Malchiyos? No one. So that's important to chap. And by the way, many understand this to be part of the answer of Rab Ada de Min Yafai. In other words, he holds, Rashi holds, that whenever you add Zechronis and Shoifres, you also add Malchiyos. And maybe that's why Rabbi Yehuda says it's not said during a fast day. No, it's Zechronis. We want God to remember us. Shoifres is from the 10 reasons of Shofar, Tshuva. We're reminding God of the Isle of Yitzchak. Malchiyos has nothing to do with the fast day. Maybe that's so. You can't just mention those 2. You have to mention all 3 together. So it's not only about that we only have 6 editions and not 7 editions. It's not about the number. It's not Shayach Malchiyos. If you can't say Malchiyos, don't say anything. Okay. Second line from the top of the Amid. Now this is going back to the Mishnah of Shitas Tanakama and going through the lengthy 7 chosamos, as we explained, as we learned yesterday in the Gemara clearly, 6 additional brachas, but already by Goyel Yisrael, we already added something during those final 7 fast days. So Al Harishayna, Hu Omer, Mi Sha'anes, Abram, etc., etc., and then we concluded with Goyel Yisrael. Now, as we said, if you look in the Mishnah, you're going to see that when it comes to the bracha that evokes the memory of how Hashem responded to Shmuel Hanavi, the concluding words of that bracha is Shoymeyat Tze'aka. So that just like God listened to the Tze'aka, to the crying out of Shmuel, He should listen to us. Tze'aka. By the additional bracha that speaks about how Hashem listened to Eliyah Navi, there we conclude with the word Shoymeyat Tefilla. We just pointed out that Shemona Esrei, that Amida prayer will have 2 brachas that end with Shemeyat Tefillah. We have in the regular Shemona Esrei a Shemeyat tefillah bracha. It doesn't bother us that there's a repeat. But the word tefillah is connected to Elyahu, and the word tza'aka is connected to Shmuel. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in another brayso, Tana yesh machlifim. There's another Tana that holds that we use the word tza'aka not by Shmuel, by Elyahu. And we use the word tefillah concerning the bracha that evokes the memory of how God listened to the prayer of Shmuel and of Tana. End of quote. Asks the Gemara, hold on. Bishloimam, regarding Shmuel, if you read Shmuel in Nach, you will see that there are times that the word tefillah is used by Shmuel, and there are other times that the word tza'aka is used by Shmuel. Rashi brings the psukim. So it makes sense that you can have an option. Our Tana holds one, the other Tana holds the other. But both nuscha'os are sourced in scripture, which is good. Regarding Eliyah Navi, tefillah ksivbe, tza'aka like ksiv, there isn't a pasuk that uses the words tza'aka by Elijah the prophet. So how can you have a nusach according to that brayso that concludes the bracha of Elyahu with Shemei tza'aka? Answers the Gemara that people think, how would you tie tza'aka? I know there's za'aka, there's zayin, there's tzadik. Tza'aka in English is crying out. Crying out. Some people think that it sounds like you're crying out loud. Tzoyek, ashrayir. No, it's not about the kamos, it's about the echos. It's about the depth of the prayer. It's coming from a deeper place. And where do we find the Eliyah Navi that there were times that he prayed from this deeper place? Taka, the word tza'aka is not written, but the Torah sometimes writes a repetition of his crying out. And when Hashem writes a word twice, it's not written twice because he added more words, because it came from a deeper place. Where do we find the double expression? Aneni Hashem Aneni. Aneni Hashem Aneni, the Gemara says that's a lashon of tza'aka. That's what tza'aka means. Gavaldik. So therefore both versions have a leg to stand on. Allah shishis, who oimer mishanas yoinam, and on the 7th, who oimer mishanas David. Now I quoted the Tosfos yesterday. Tosfos quoted the Gemara. We finished yesterday's shiur. The Gemara asks, Michti, Yoina basa David Shleima Hava. Pasha, Yoina was alive. The story of Yoina happened after David and Shleima. So, my Tama Magdam Lebereisha. Answers the Gemara. The reason why in the Seder of the 6 additional brachas, Yoina is prior to David and Shleima, because Mishum, the Bayel Michta Marachem ala Aretz. The goal is to conclude with that which is the most connected to the lack of rain. Now, when there is a drought, what does drought affect? Drought affects the land. David and Shloima are particularly connected to the land. That is what Tosfos wanted to point out. One of the versions is the land of Israel. Of course, it means the whole land of Israel, but it begins with the Beis Hamikdash. And David and Shloima are both connected. David bought the land there. David prepared everything that was needed. He had the blueprints. Shlomo actually built it. So since you want to evoke God's mercy for rain for the land, you speak about those who were the most connected to the land, to the Beis Hamikdash. So you want to end with David and Shlomo. That's why they are mentioned last. Tana, we learned Mishum Sumchas Amru, that in the name of Sumchas they said that the final bracha doesn't end with the words Menachem ala Aretz. The final bracha ends with the words Mashpil Haramim. That Hashem lowers those who are haughty. Wow. That's very important. Because the answer now was knocked out, really. In other words, if the last bracha does not conclude with Aretz, so then we're really back, we can argue, we're back to a question, but we're not back to the question. Because the way Hashem is mashpil the ramim, that's the way you have to understand the Gemara, is by not giving rain.
How is that connected to David and Shlomo?
You're saying it's all connected.
Because l'chayra David, let's go. We have to work this out. That David, Pi Chasidus, David was the most humble of kings. There was never a king as humble as him. How's it connected to Shlomo?
Shlomo was
all right.
Not as humble.
Well, we have to be careful what we say. There's a big tzaddikim. No, there's something here that the Gemara is not writing. The Gemara wants us to chap. Even according to Sumchas, it works. It's not like the Gemara doesn't add ulu Sumchas kasha. It's understood that it we're good. Okay. Weiter. Sholish, good meaning, I don't know, but let's move on. Sholish, Taanis, Rishonos, Anshe Mishmar Mesanim, V'loi Mashlimin. Okay, so now that we spoke about in the Mishnah, the people that belong to the Mishmar, the people that belong to the Beis Av, and by the way, we had a machlokes in the Mishnah between the Chachamim, right, and Rabbi Yossi, how much of the non-fasting do we apply? Be that as it may, says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, Mipnei ma omru anshe mishmar mutarim lishtois yayin baleilis. According to that opinion, that the people that belong to that group, but it wasn't their day, at night they were allowed to drink, but not during the day. It's a double question, like mimon avshach. If you're going to go by the people who de facto are doing the avodah during that day, it's only the people of that Beis Av. The other people are not going to do the avodah. If for some reason you want to impose a chumrah on them, so then it should be day and night, explains the Gemara. No, it's beautiful. The Beis Av, they were the ones that were first in line to do the avodah. But if for whatever reason there was so much avodah to be done and they needed a helping hand, they would ask from the other members of the Mishmar to give them a helping hand. And all the members of the Mishmar needed to be there. They needed to be there. They couldn't say, I know my day is Tuesday, so let me come to Yerushalayim and HaKodesh on Tuesday. It didn't work that way. They needed to come the Friday prior. They needed to be present in the Beis HaMikdash by the change of the guard. And during the week they were there, and if they might be called to service. There might be a lot of, literally, heavy work. Too many karbanos, not too many, Baruch Hashem, many karbanos. And v'yavoyu v'yisayolahem, they will be called to do service, so therefore we do not want them to be intoxicated. Now, the Gemara doesn't have to fear ois. What about at night? At night there was never that much avodah. True that they finished bringing the chalav and ve'evarim at night. We said if the mizbeach spit off a piece of meat because of the heat, if the heat propelled it off the mizbeach, you have to bring it back up. It's not that much. So therefore they were not needed. Now, they were not allowed to drink wine, not by day, not by night, because that's exactly their job. And therefore, they may not be intoxicated. Okay. Now, mikan amru upa. Mikan means now that we see that all of the kohanim of the Mishmar cannot drink wine by day. Why not? Even though it's not their day, because maybe there's going to be so much work in the Beis HaMikdash they'll be called. No, it's that maybe is strong enough to restrict them from drinking wine. That's the mikan. Oy bazoi, mikan amru. What happens post-temple? Really, it's not correct to say post-temple. We are Yidden that are living already with the mindset of Mashiach is coming. The Kohanim that are living pre-third temple. But during Galus, Mikan Amru, the last narrow line that called Kohen Shemakir Mishmartai. If you know what Mishmar you working. Now, Chavra, this is based on a premise that the Rabbeinu HaKadosh argues with. The premise is that after the Churban Abayis, the 24 groups, they kept on halting up what week is our week. Even though the temple was not here last week, but we still go through that order. So when Mashiach comes, we jump right back in to the old calendar. You can argue with this premise. You can say that if the temple was destroyed, so Yehoyarav did not do his avodah, or whatever the names of the Mishmaris will have the later in Taanis, so they can say when Mashiach comes, we'll do it. Or maybe anyone will do it until they'll redivide it. This is based on a premise that the cycle still continues. So if you know what cycle you belong to, the first white line, and you know more than that, you even know what day you belong to. So then, number 3, this is the most important, V'yodeya shebate avois of kavuam sham. One of the interpretations of Rashi is, you know for sure that your family did not become invalid. You know for sure that the yichus is good. That means you know that if Mashiach comes today, you'll be called to service today. Again, if the cycle continues even without the Beis HaMikdash. Oy bazoi, mikan omru, no, mikan means even if there's a suffix. So oy bazoi, asolishtes yain kol hayom. Even during Galus, even pre the building of the third Beis HaMikdash, you may not drink wine that day. Now this guy only has to abstain from more or less 2 days a year. because the cycle of 24 more or less covered the whole year, and then you're only one day of the week. But let's go further. What happens if you have some information? Even worse, if you know what week you belong to, but you forgot what Beis Av you belong to, you don't know that with certainty. As long as you know that you are a kohen miyuchas, whether you can prove it or not, it doesn't matter. You know that Mashiach is coming, you're going to be called to do service. You don't know what day, but you know the week. Okay, so then also lishtesam kolos hashana. And now step number 3, David. Eina makir mishmartoi ve'umishmeres beis av. Thank you. I've said that entire week. Shabbos means that week. I'm sorry, whatever I said. You because maybe today is your day of the week. Now, if you don't know your mishmartoi, you don't even know what and therefore you for sure don't know mishmeres beis av shaloi. Superfluous, but that's the way we write it. As the only thing you need to know is that there was nowhere in your ancestry where someone married someone who a kohen was not allowed to marry. No, there's no doubt on your yichus, which is v'yodeya shabbatei avois of kavuam sham. You know that you will be there. Says the Tanakama, say the Chachamim, asur lishtois yayin kol hashana. You may never drink wine. Wow, we don't paskin. The Rambam doesn't paskin this way, but that's the sheet of the Chachamim. Makes a lot of sense. In other words, if the Mishnah would have said that only the Beis Av cannot drink wine, but the Anshe of the Mishmar could drink wine, we wouldn't come to this conclusion. But now that the Mishnah said that even though normally if you belong to the Mishmar, but your day is Tuesday and today is Monday, you during the day cannot drink wine, we're saying because maybe tichpat avoida. If a suffix is enough to demand abstinence of wine, well, if you have a suffix, abstinence of wine. Now Rashi says, and let's take it to the end. And what happens if you don't know for sure that you're a miyuchas? Maybe you also don't drink wine. Rashi says that's called a svek sveka. In other words, you don't even know whether you're going to work in the Beis HaMikdash. And on top of that, you don't know whether this is your week. That's called a svek sveka. You don't have to be chayish. But as long as you know you're working in the temple, the question is only, will you work today? You may not drink wine. However, Rebbe disagrees. Rabbeinu HaKadosh and Omer Ani, and he says with humility that asur lishtois yayin la'olam. Really, number one, this is step number 1. I don't buy into this premise that the cycle of the Mishmaros continues even when there's no Beis HaMikdash. That means that even if you know what Mishmar you belonged to in the past, when there was a Beis HaMikdash, and you know that this week is not your Mishmar, I don't care. When Mashiach is coming, every kohen has to be ready to do the avodah. So Rebbe begins making a statement which sounds like he's going to be the most machmer. In other words, according to Rebbe, that the cycle of the Mishmaros ended with the Churban Habayis. So when the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi is going to be built, until we figure out how to divide the Mishmaros anew and who's going to go when, any kohen might be called to do service. So therefore, no kohen should ever be allowed to drink, based on the understanding of the Chachamim. Avol ma'aseh, what can I do, says Rebbe. And look at these words, shetakonosoi. Takana means the fixing of. In other words, the restoration. The fact that a kohen is allowed to drink wine is coming because of kalkalosei. It's becoming because of him not being allowed, theoretically, to ever drink wine. Now, what does that mean? So this is the way one understanding of Rashi is and other Rishonim. If you knowing what Mishmar you belong to would allow you to drink wine during the other 23 weeks of the year, only not during that week, then Rebbe would say, if there would be such a thing, then it's shaykh to make such a gzeira. But since Rebbe holds that the cycle is disrupted, which would mean that if you're going to subscribe to this, maybe Mashiach is coming today, you can't drink wine. What would that mean? That you can never ever drink wine. That's too extreme. We can't impose, because of that doubt, that you will never be allowed to drink wine. So if you don't have any restriction, so we have to remove the restriction, so then you can always drink wine. Sometimes going too much to one side forces you to go to the opposite side. In other words, if Rebbe would have held like the Chachamim, that theoretically, at least if you know what Mishmar you belong to, this Isur of wine is restricted, then Rebbe would say, fine. Taka, maybe Mashiach is coming today. That maybe Mashiach is coming today is for sure, but maybe therefore you can't drink wine. But since I hold that no, the cycle ended. So therefore really everyone is makulkal. You can't make such a kilkul. You can't demand of people that forever during all these thousands of years of Golos, a kohen can never drink wine, and therefore a kohen is allowed to drink wine. And Amar Abaye Kaman Shosu Ha'idna Kahane Chamra, the fact is that Kohanim drink wine nowadays, even though that normally Chachamim, Yachid Verabim, obviously they are following the Shita of Rebbe. Weiter. Anshe Mishmar Va'anshe Maimad, as we learned in the Mishnah, Asurim L'Sapro L'Chabes, that during their week they're not allowed to both take a haircut nor launder their clothing. However, with the exception of Thursday, Ubachamishi, on Thursdays, Mutarim, they are allowed Mepnei Kavod Shabbos. Like we mentioned, Friday you're busy buying food for Shabbos, so the additional Hachanas L'Shabbos already begins on Thursday, and indeed they were allowed to take a haircut and allowed to launder the clothing. Now, my tama means, why is it asr? Why did they care? Let them take a haircut during their week of service. Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chan, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, very similar to Chalamayid, Kedei Shelo Yikonsul Mishmerasam Kisheim Minuvalim. If they would be allowed to do these manual tasks during the week of their service, they, when people have a life, then you're telling a person, that week a year, you gotta go, what's it called today? Miluim. You gotta go to the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, I'm gonna do certain things while I'm there. I'll take the haircut while I'm in Yerushalayim, especially I know that during the week, only one day, only my Beis Av. So I'll have a lot of free time. I'll take a haircut in Yerushalayim. And who cares if you have that mindset? The problem will be is that when you arrive there, you're gonna arrive with long hair, which is called menuvel. You're not gonna be kempt. You're gonna arrive there with dirty clothing. So they wanted you to arrive to Yerushalayim, oizgeputz, looking proper. So the way they do it is listen here, while you're there, you can't do this. So that forces people to kempt themselves, to groom themselves prior to their arrival. Tana Rabbana, we learned in a Braisa regarding cutting hair. Melech, a king, mistaper b'chol yom, must take a haircut every day. Kohen Gadol must take a haircut at least once a week. Me'erev Shabbos la'erev Shabbos. A Kohen Hedyet, a common Kohen, must take a haircut once in 30 days. It doesn't mean that he has to wait the whole 30 days, but he can't allow more than that to pass. Where do we get that from? Melech mistaper b'chol yom, my tama. Omar Abba Bar Zavda Omar Kra Pasuk in Yeshaya Melech b'yafiyoi techazena einecha. Your eyes shall behold your king in his beauty. And again, we're speaking about grooming, and having a haircut makes a person look better groomed. Koyin Gadol me'erev Shabbos la'erev Shabbos, similar logic. My tama Amar Rab Shmuel bar Yitzchak Hoyul u'mishmaris mischatshoi. Since, like we said, the change of the guard happens on Shabbos, so the new mishmar enters there on Shabbos. We want for the new mishmar, when they see the Koyin Gadol the first time, he should be. Now we can't take a haircut on Shabbos, of course. So you take a haircut on erev Shabbos. Kohen Hedyet has to take a haircut once in 30 days and not allow his hair to grow longer. Where do we know that from? We have a Gezerah Shava. Now this is not a bona fide Gezerah Shava, because a halachic Gezerah Shava is never made between Nach and Chamishi Chumshei Torah. But it's just revealing, it's revealing the meaning of words. It says, pera, from a nazir. It says over here means Yecheskel. But it says in Yecheskel regarding Kohanim in general, V'roisham lo yegalechu, they're not allowed to shave the hair off their head. That's too bald. That's also not groomed. On the other hand, Upera lo yishalechu. Pera means long hair. They shouldn't let the hair to grow long. In between. What does that mean? What does it mean there shouldn't be a pera? We don't know. But since it says in the Torah, in the Chumash, by the Nazir in Parshas Nasai, Kadosh Yeh, Gadel Pera Sa'ar Roishoi, that the Nazir must leave his hair to grow long. And as we know the rules of a Nazirite, that the minimum amount of time for a Nazir to be a Nazir is 30 days. And more than that, if a person says, I'm a Nazir, Hareini Nazir, he didn't say how many days, Stam Nazir Shleishim Yoim, Malahalan Shleishim Yoim, and perfect. So whenever you are a Nazir, you will have Peraroish, you'll have a Peri, you'll have a Chup, because you'll be a Nazir for 30 days. You break the Nazirus the next day. Afkan, that for 30 days, in other words, here it's in the opposite direction. Here, don't let your hair grow for more than 30 days. Now, how do we know by a Nazir that Nazir is connected to 30 days? That's not something that's written explicitly. Amar Rav Masna. Here we go. Stam Nazir Shloshim Yom. And how do you know that? Amar Kra. It says Kadosh Yihiyah. Yihiyah is Bigamatria 30. So it's amazing. This is a beautiful limit because you have a Gezerah Shava from Yecheskel to the Chumash based on a Gematria. Gewaldig. Okay.
Oh, wait, there's no pasuk? I'm sorry, going back to where we said that the Kohen Gadol has to do it every week.
No pasuk. Logic.
Okay,
it's based on the pasuk of Melech B'Yafya Techazeh Einecha. It's based on that. No, it's extrapolated from that because you look at the Kohen Gadol. When you see a person, you don't notice the hair. When you look at them the first time, if you are a real Haredi, the first thing you'll notice is the person here, and you'll notice how the hair is very long. I'm telling you, you have no idea. Melech B'Yafya means that a king should present himself in a beautiful way. There's, we didn't learn. There's an obligation on the leader of the Jewish people to groom himself more than usual. You don't know that. And this is not, God forbid, connected with misalsel besaroi klipas noiga. No. Let's leave it at that. Okay, weiter. Hold on. Well, let's go back to the pasuk in Yecheskel. The pasuk says, "Upera lo yishalechu." Let me teach it differently. Maybe hachi ka'amar rachmana. The merciful one is nach. Again, these are words that we normally use for the Chumash. That when it says upera lo yishalechu, it means loi lirabu klal, that he should not grow his hair at all, not to shave. No. It means maybe a kohen hedyot should be like the king, and automatically so the kohen gadol. Maybe he should have to take a haircut every day. And I want you to know regarding the king that what was considered a nice haircut. Like you can't shave. We learned this, I think, in Soita, is that it should be a short haircut, but you should not see the scalp or the scalp. Where's Danny Fish? How you pronounce it? Scalp. So the edge. There's like the root of the hair, and then there is the edge. The edge of one hair should be laying on the root of the neighboring hair. The stam, it's a number 1.5.
Why would you have to cut your hair every day then?
Huh?
Why do you have to cut it every day then?
Because that's beautiful. King wants to be looked groomed. Long hair is considered disgusting in the Torah view. So anyway, so maybe every kohen should have to cut his hair every day. And by the way, they didn't have machines then, so it wasn't so pashut. To give such a haircut, you have to know how you're doing it. To cut it very short, but it should still look good. Today, a mistam, it means a number 2, maybe a number 4, whatever the number is. Okay, so amalei, no. If the wordings would have been written in the following order, loy yishalchu or loy yishalechu pera, then the taich would be, don't grow here. Then you're right, kidduka amarat. But hashadechsiv upera lo yishalechu. That way of formulating the words means you have to know digduk. Pera lahava faket. You have to have here. No, let the hair grow. Don't be megazim. You don't have to be such a charedi chinyak. You don't have to have a number 2 every day. Once a month, take a number 2. Because after a month, it's already very long. But shaluch hayud lo yishalchu. Don't allow the hair to continue to grow. Okay. Now we're going back. We established that a kohen may never, according to the Chachamim, a kohen, imagine, if a kohen doesn't know what mishmar, what Beisafi belongs to, as long as the kohen thinks he's a meyuchas, how do I know that every kohen thinks that they're meyuchas? Every kohen gets called the Latoida first, he goes to Duchen. Yeah, you know you're a meyuchas? Never drink wine. And according to the Chachamim, they would never drink wine. Oy bazoi, let a kohen never be allowed nowadays to have hair grown more than 30 days. For the same logic, Mashiach can come today, he has to be ready to do the service. Iyachi afilu ha'idna nami. Afilu ha'idna nami. Iyachi, the Rabbeinu Gershon, I'm reading the Rabbeinu Gershon on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. He says, you know what the iyachi means? If, what's the if? Now that we have a Gezerah Shava, now that we are allowing to learn, there's a Gilui Milsa here from this Gezerah Shava, which is very unusual, Torah and Nach. If you have a pera, so he says, Nizirus is noyeg bizman hazeh. No one should become a Nazir because they're in trouble, because they can't bring their karbanos. But if a person were to say nowadays, I'm a Nazir, they're stuck in their Nazirus, unless they're mateneder. So if there is a pera, so let, even more, not Mashiach is coming, better. Iyachi means, let this law that a kohen may not have long hair apply nowadays. Gavaldik. So answers the Gemara, that this prohibition is like the prohibition of him drinking wine. Ma shasuye yayin. is only bisman biyahu da aser. The prohibition on a kohen, even when the Beis Hamikdash is standing, it's only when he enters. But shaloi bisman biyah shari, if he's not going to enter the Beis Hamikdash, God did not give a blanket statement that a kohen cannot drink wine. He only may not drink wine during the avodah. Hachinami, the whole restriction that we find in Yecheskel regarding the common kohen, even the common kohen not being allowed to have long hair, is only connected to his doing the service. If it's not in the context of him doing the service, then we don't care. Now, Mashiach can come right now. The Gemara is going to ask it on Amud Beis. I got ahead of myself. But the Iyachi is Iyachi, there's a pera gezeda shav. Frek the Gemara, second line from the bottom. This is Gavaldik. V'hotanya. Did we not just learn that Rebbe Yomer ani koyhanim asurim lishtois yayin la'olam? Number one, this rotation, the cycle of the Mishmaros, does not continue in the absence of the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, theoretically, even if you know what Mishmar you belong to, and you know that this was not your week while the second temple stood, maybe it's going to be your week right now. So on one hand, no one should ever be allowed to drink wine. And that's why everyone is always allowed. And on that says Abaya Kaman Shosu Ho'idno Kahane Chamra. Why de facto are Kohanim drinking wine nowadays? Yudzayin Beis. That's only because they follow Rebbe. In other words, what are we saying? That if we would follow the Chachamim, now we just mentioned that the Rambam paskins like Rebbe, but that's a novelty. Normally, Yachid v'Rabim. The halacha should be like the Chachamim. That's the one who asked the question, was presuming the halacha is like the Chachamim. They hold that Kohanim nowadays may not drink wine ever. The Isur of Shisui Yayin is only connected to Bia. Yeah. Mashiach can come. And you might enter the Beis HaMikdash in a few minutes. You'll be standing over there doing the Avodah. If that's the case, same thing should be with the haircut. Answers the Gemara, no. My Tama. Yeah, you're right. Kohanim nowadays, lechachamim, may never drink wine. But why may they not drink wine? Because meheda yibana Beis Hamikdash. Now the words meheda has really a double meaning. Meheda doesn't only mean that it can start happening in any moment, but it means that even when the process begins, there's a possibility that it's going to happen quickly. Because if the beginning of the building of the temple to when the Beis Hamikdash is going to be concluded is going to take a long amount of time, it's going to take, let's say, a whole day, then you can drink wine, but by then, the effects, the intoxicating effects will have dissipated. But the pshat is, we learned this with Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, made a takana, that Yoim Hanaf Kula Yasser. As we just learned in Rosh Hashanah, that whole sugya, if you remember. Anyways, coming back over here. And we're going to right away need to have a kohen that can do the avodah. Tuma is the chuya. Tuma maybe is even hutra. But you can't have a kohen that's shikah, which is why he may not drink. Says the Gemara that the time that it takes for the intoxicating effects of wine to dissipate is much longer than the time that it takes to get rid of long hair.
Especially today.
And Shlem is saying here, especially today. Today you have a machine. A haircut can take 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Fancy haircut can take 5 minutes.
If Mashiach is announced and Mashiach is coming, all the barbers are going to be full. They're going to be busy.
That's what I was thinking.
Let's go like this, that when Mashiach comes, the barber should be smart. They should put a fast track for Kehanim and charge a surcharge. Instead of charging $20, they'll charge $25.
3-minute haircut.
Today here in Beverly Hills, someone told me they pay up $80. A man, nishkan froi. Gesundheit, pay $80 for a haircut. You'll pay $100 for a haircut because you want it quickly. So here, when it comes to taking a haircut, efshir de mesaper v'ayel beseder. It's not going to compromise your readiness. Take a haircut and go in. And go serve the avodah. Oh, the problem is that even if that God willing, that the coming of Mashiach will be in a more miraculous way. Because we're zachu. So the building of the temple itself will be in a way of meheda. But it's still going to take a little bit of time. Meheda means what? A minute? It means 20 minutes? It means an hour? It means epis time. Isn't that enough time to get rid of the intoxicating effects? Asks the Gemara, there are two things that we do that gets rid of the intoxicating effects of wine. Today you take charcoal. There's no whole minhagam. The Gemara didn't have it. Either sleep or walk. We learned that. So he let the Gani Porta sleep a little bit. And it doesn't sleep, get rid of the effects. The ayel and then enter do the avodah. That's part of the Huh?
Who can sleep when Mashiach?
Who can sleep when Mashiach is coming? How can it be? It's a good question. Kiderami baraba. The Omarami baraba, that derech meal is not that much. If you're walking for 1 meal and or veshina kolshu, even drinking, even sleeping just a little bit. Mafigen esayayin. Mafigen means it takes away the power of the wine. So answers the Gemara, it depends how much wine you're drinking. That statement of Rami bar Abba is only if you drank exactly a revius and not more. If you had 3 ounces of wine. Then walking and sleeping gets rid of the effects. But lav mi itmar Allah, did we not learn Amar Rav Nachman Amar Abba bar Avuha lo yishanu ela kishashasa shiur revius. If you drank that amount and not more. Avol shasa yoisin merevius, the moment you drink more than a revius of wine, kol shchein, walking makes it worse and sleeping makes it worse. Shederach matri dasoi, it doesn't mean it makes it worse, it means that it disturbs you. When a person is beyond the 1 revius, which for many of us is not that much wine, walking is going to make you feel worse, not make you feel better. And sleeping is even worse. Vishina mishakartoi, sleep will make you more intoxicated. If a person is drunk, God forbid, and you wake them up after sleeping a little bit of time, they'll be even more drunk. So therefore, we go back to l'chachamim, you may not drink wine, but even l'chachamim, a kohen is not bound by taking a number 2 haircut once in 30 days and not allowing it to grow, God forbid, longer. There's another answer. And that answer is, Rav Ashi is going to say it by heart, that there's a big difference. A kohen cannot do the avodah while he's under the influence of wine. A kohen may not do the avodah while he has long hair. What happens if he did? So the kohen with the long hair violated the prohibition, but his service is not invalidated. The kohen who, God forbid, is doing avodah while he's under the influence of wine, not only did he violate a prohibition, but that invalidated the avodah. So this concept of a kohen nowadays may not, because Mashiach is coming any moment and he might be called to do the service, and therefore not that we are afraid that he's going to violate the prohibition. Of course, we don't want him to violate a prohibition. But this gezerah of nowadays, because of Meheda Yabana Beis HaMikdash, is only if he'll violate, he will invalidate the avodah. Rav Ashi Omar, Shesuye Yayin, the Machalei avodah, it invalidates the avodah, Gevaldik. That is why Gozru Barabanan, you may not drink wine during Golus, ever. If you don't know what Beisav you belong to, if you don't know what Mishmar you belong to, as long as you know that you are a valid kohen. But Peruah Roish, having long hair, since the loy machlei avodah, even though you should not do the avodah, but if you will do so, you want to invalidate it. Loy gosru barabanon gevaldik meisvei. Based on this premise, who told you that shesuya yayin invalidates and a long-haired kohen doesn't invalidate? How do you know that? Maybe a kohen that does the avodah with long hair also invalidated the avodah. It says in a Braisa, now this Braisa is not speaking about the invalidation of the service in the temple. This Braisa is speaking about the type of punishment that the kohen will deserve for these violations. Says the Braisa, Elu ve'elu shehem b'misa. The following violations regarding the kohen in the avodah and the Beis HaMikdash will, God forbid, earn him the punishment of death in the hands of the heavens. Misa b'dei shamayim. Shesuye yayin, if he worked under the influence, uperuah roish, and having long hair. Now hold on, we're making a jump, guys. The Braisa is not speaking about avodah psula, but first we want to show that they're both misa b'dei shamayim. End of quote. Now, where did the Braisa get it from? Asks the Gemara now. Bishlei shesuye yayin. How do I know they're chayv misa b'dei shamayim? That's clear. That's a pasuk in Shemini. Ksiv b'hu yayin v'shecher al teisht. Wie steht weiter, Ato Beisecha, right? B'vayacham aloy moyed, v'loy samusu. That's right after the Achrei Mois, not Achrei Mois, that's on Shmini. Not after the Torah records their actual passing away. So the smichus is that God told Aaron, no drinking and don't die. Ela Peruah Roish. How do you b'chlal know from the Torah that if a kohen, now we have a pasuk in Yecheskel, I get that, but how do you know that Yechayiv Misa B'dei Shamayim if you did the avodah, you kohen minolan? Because it says, we're going back to the pasuk in Yecheskel. It says, V'roisham lo yigalechu. On one hand, don't shave your head. Don't take a number 0. Not. But opera lo yishalecha, but don't grow long hair. And uksiv basrei. And it says there in Yecheskel, v'yayin lo yishtu kol koyin bevoyim elachatzer apnimis. And v'iskush piruei roish l'shesuya yayin, by the fact that the Torah juxtaposes in Yecheskel the isur of working with long hair to the prohibition of working under the influence of wine. So that hekish, it's called the hekish, ma shesuya yayin b'misa, af piruei roish b'misa, end of Gemara. In other words, this Gemara clarified the source of the Braisa. But now we got a problem. Now that we have a hekish, umina. From this very comparison, we know already the machle avoida, that no one is debating that. So af pruaroish may be the machle avoida. And now we're back, according to Rav Ashi, we're back to the question. How did the Rav Ashi know that if a kohen works with long hair, the avoida is not invalidated, maybe it's invalidated? Now, in the parentheses, the Gemara says, not necessarily true. Says the Gemara in the parentheses that we're not goides. Why? There's a hekish only for one thing and not for something else. Says here, so the Mesorah Sashar says, first of all, it's not correct. It's not correct because in Sanhedrin, the Gemara asks the same question, and the Gemara says, Taka Kasha. We'll have an answer soon. But it's more than that. It's not only we have another version. This answer is not correct. Why is this answer not correct? Guys, remember, there's a rule. B'yud Gimel Midah is Hatoyr Nedreshes. And we already spoke many times that even though Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, they have the 13, the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel is only Klal Uprat, Ribui Miut. There are many more than 13. There are many more than 13. One way of learning halachis is from a hekish. If a hekish is being employed, ein hekish lemechza. You can't say this by a hekish. So far, we have a kasha. Now, we also mentioned many times that sometimes the Gemara says the words tiyufta. Tiyufta means you are refuted. Other times the Gemara uses the words kasha. Kasha means there is an answer. Sometimes the Gemara doesn't write it. We'll see in a few lines how Rav Ashi will stand. But so far, the Gemara is acknowledging, we got a problem. We're not refuting you, as we'll see soon, but we got a problem. Rav Ashi, I have another question. Everything is from Yecheskel? No, it's amazing. Nowhere in Chumshei Torah do we even have a remez that a kohen may not do the avodah with long hair. Let's accept Rav Ashi's premise. It's not going to invalidate the avodah, but there is an isur to work for a kohen. Where does it say? It says nowhere. You're showing me a pasuk in Yecheskel. What does that mean? Does that mean that until the comings of Yecheskel, a kohen worked with long hair? Amalei. So to which Rav Ashi responded, a klal. Guys, we have to remember this. There are many, many mitzvahs that are not even alluded to in the Chumash. There isn't even a remes in the Chumash. We call that halacha l'Moshe Sinai. A big part of Yiddishkeit, halacha l'Moshe Sinai. For some reasons, some of those dinim were later recorded in Tanach. But if the first scriptural source is Nach, it doesn't mean that din began at that time. It was always Asr, and one Navi decided to put it in there. And we're going to use an example. Well, just because it's not written in the Chumash, do you even have a Havamina that until when it's recorded in the later books of the scripture, it was permitted? For example, Rab Chizda told us that Davar Zeh, Rab Chizda was speaking about an uncircumcised kohen doing the avodah. And I want you to know, not only may he not do the avodah, if a kohen does not have a bris milah, if he did the avodah, it's meichel the avodah. It invalidates the avodah. Nowhere are you going to find this written in Chumshei Torah. And I want you to know that according to many Rishonim, Rashi included, that even includes a kohen who halachically was not allowed to have a bris milah. Like if a person has a certain illness, and if they get a cut, they bleed to death. Mesu echav machmas milah. Or any other reason, even when one is halachically not allowed to have a bris milah, he may not do the avodah, and the avodah is invalidated. And Rab Chizda said, "Davar zeh Torah Moshe Rabbeinu lo yilamadnu," but Rab Chizda says, "Aha! I found in Yecheskel." Punkt again, Yecheskel. I found in Navi Yasource. U'medivrei Kabbalah, yes lamadnu, where it says, "Kol ben nechar," and Eyaral Leiv, and Eyaral Basar, Aral Leiv and Aral Basar. Even a Yid if a Yid does not have an actual circumcision, lo yavoy el migdashi, whether the verse says lisharseni or not. So that's the pasuk. So here again says Ravina to Rav Ashi, if the first source is in Yecheskel, which is a fact, who said that? Who said it doesn't mean that until Yecheskel said that, a Kohen was allowed to do the avoid. Of course not. Ella Gemara Gomerla. Gemara means we have a tradition. Coming back to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem told it to Moshe Rabbeinu. Came along Yecheskel v'asmachakra, and he put it into the Nach. Hachinami Gemara Gomerla. That what? That a Kohen was never allowed to do the avodah with hair that's unkempt, that was not cut 30 days, max to 30 days. And va'asa Yecheskel v'asmachakra, and now we'll read the parentheses. And now Rav Ashi has his answer. So what was your question? How do you know? Why don't we make a hekesh? I'll tell you why. Because we don't need a hekesh. We know this from God. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu regarding the prohibition of not working with long hair, it's an isur gavra. You may not work with long hair. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, but if you work, the avodah is okay. Ki Gemira halacha was only regarding the penalty. He's not allowed to do it, and if he did it, God forbid, he's chayv misa b'dei shamayim. But la'achuli avodah, we had no such tradition. So if God did not say it, we understand that it won't invalidate the avodah. So Rav Ashi's answers, yes, stands. Let's go weiter. So since the Mishnah spoke about Megillas Taanis, let's see how far we can get. Let's start reading. And the point that the Mishnah made is that sometimes when it says in that Megillah that on these days you can't fast, sometimes it says Deloy lihis ano, you can't fast. Other times it says you can't even eulogize. And we learned in the Mishnah, Machlokes Chachamim and Rabbi Yossi, we're going to review the details tomorrow. But remember the concept, that sometimes when a date is recorded in Megillas Taanis, not only is that date a date which you can't fast, and you can't eulogize, even the day before, or even the day later. These nuances we're going to repeat tomorrow from Machlokes Chachamim and Rabbi Yossi. Just remember that. So let's begin reading about certain Yamim Tovim. Says the Gemara, Kol HaKosav Megillas Taanis, if the words in Megillas Taanis is not don't fast. No, if it says don't eulogize, which means not only don't fast, even don't eulogize, says the Chachamim, you know what that means? It means that not only may you not fast nor eulogize during the day or the days of Yom Tov, but also Lefanav is also Asr. Erev Yom Tov. However, according to the Chachamim, when it says the Loila Mispat, La'achrav will be mutter. Okay, Nekuda. That is a shit of the Chachamim. Tana Rabbanan. We are actually quoting a passage of Megillas Taanis. I mentioned we lost the actual Megillah, but you can go to a Sfarim store and buy Megillas Taanis. Because what we did was, we went through the whole Shas, and every time the Gemara quotes a part of Megillas Taanis, they put it together. Could be some dates are missing, but we have we reconstructed Megillas Taanis. Now here we have. It says, Elaine Yoimaya, in these following days. You see the words? It doesn't say Deloy lemispada. In the following days, Deloy lihisana bohain. No, it's in all of the days that are recorded in the Megillah, in none of them are you allowed to fast. Furthermore, the first white line, u'miktsas hain, in some of those days, wherever the Chachamim then felt the miracle was even a greater miracle, the celebration has to be a greater celebration, also being expressed in the negative of not eulogizing, even the loyla mispat behind. And it is on this that the Mishnah says that if a taka says even the loyla mispat, even lefan of us. And let's go to Yom Tov. Yom Tov number 1. Let me say by heart, during the beginnings of the times of the second Beis HaMikdash, connected to the fact that Ezra sealed the Tanach. Why did he close the Tanach? Maybe another Navi is going to come about. Ezra, basically in the Anshe Knesses HaGdolah said that the level of Nevuah ended. There were exceptions later, but the era of prophecy ended, and it is here that we began the halachic compilation of what we call now Torah Shebal Peh, Mishnah, Gemara. The center of Judaism used to be inspiration, and now it became scholarship. Many people were against it because inspiration speaks to your soul. Scholarship is very cold. By the way, that's why when the Holy Baal Shem Tov came around and he brought back the inspiration, so many people were suspicious. Because the first people that fought against it was Tzadok and Baisus. And they said, why? No, let's leave inspiration as to be the center of Yiddishkeit. And by the way, as we see, we look back, the level of the Shechina was not as manifest in the times of Bayis Sheni. There was a lack of inspiration. So we replaced it. You want to be connected to God, it's all about learning halachas. Very, very rigid. And many people can be uninspired people. The more frum, the harder it is for you to be inspired. The more inspired, the greater risk you're going to break the rules. Because, come on, we're good. So now we had debates with them. These people, they ultimately became the Christians. They began to reject the oral Torah because they didn't want the oral Torah. They wanted Nevius, they wanted inspiring people to be the ones making up how we should do. And the one debate with them was regarding a carbon Talmud. So from the first day of Nisan, Va'at Temanya Bay until and including the 8th day of Nisan, Itoikam, we established the right way of bringing the carbon Talmud. Says Rashi, what happened was like this, that the Tzedukim claimed that even if a Yachid donated a lamb for the Talmud, the Beis HaMikdash should be allowed to accept it and to offer it. And how did they do that? Because in the parsha of Talmud that we read every Rosh Chodesh, it says, Es hakeves echad tase baboiker. If you know Lashon HaKodesh, tas is Lashon Yachid. So they were claiming you can bring it from communal funds, but you can also offer it from a Yachid if a Yachid was noidav. And we knew that that's not what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, and we used tishmeru. The word tishmeru is in Rabbim. So we had a debate with them. Obviously, the debate was much longer than this. It took 8 days to debate them. Now, guys, it's not like if we would not be able to win the debate, the law would be different. God forbid. But it was very important for us, for them to acquiesce to us, because throughout the Second Temple era, there were Kahanim that they were really tzedukim by susim. They didn't accept the real authority of the oral Torah, but they were not honest about it. And if they worked on the Beis HaMikdash, sometimes they might follow their opinion, unbeknownst to us. So whenever even they were moida that we're right, so we celebrated that. So we debated them for 8 days. Finally, we won the debate. So we made a takana, we made a yom tov that during the first 8 days of Nisan, even not to make a eulogy, not only not to fast, the loyal mismat behind. And again, we're bringing it back to our Mishnah. So now we know from our Mishnah, since regarding these 8 days, the loyal mismat behind, you can't even make a eulogy the day prior. We'll get back to that more. Now, from the next, one more yom tov, mitamanya bay, from the 8th day of Nisan until the end of the Moyed, until the last day of Pesach, and that is Yisrael, the 7th day of Pesach, a toisav, we established when the holiday of Shavuot should be. And this is a more known debate. The Gemara in Menachos Daf Samachei has many details about this debate that took a long time to have. It went from the 8th until the end. They were saying, it says V'machras HaShabbos. I want you to know one thing, that the weekday of the Omer, we know it to be the 16th, that weekday will be the same weekday of Shavuos. The Baisusim wanted for Shavuos to always be on Sunday. By insisting that you bring the Omer the first Sunday after Shabbos, no matter when the first day of Pesach is. It's always Mimachras HaShabbos. If Pesach is on Shabbos, then you bring it on Sunday. We do. But if Pesach is on Sunday, then you bring it next week Sunday. And therefore, the whole their kavanah was, they felt, not like many people say, oh my God, a Yom Tov back-to-back with Shabbos. They couldn't wait to have a Yom Tov back-to-back to Shabbos. And they were great, so Shavuos is a one-day Yom Tov, but if Shavuos falls out on Sunday, the Baisusim wanted that to happen, and they claimed that God is so merciful, God always wanted that. Now, thank God we won that debate. And therefore, all of the days of the debate were established as holidays. The loyla mispat behind. I know it's late. We're a little bit behind. God willing, we'll make it up. But it's all going to come back to our Mishnah's Machlokes Chachamim and Rabbi Yosi, how these Yomim Tovim affected the days prior to the days post. And let's just appreciate the problem with all this. The problem is that anyways, on Rosh Chodesh is a Yom Tov. any days Pesach is a Yom Tov. Why would those days be mentioned in Megillas Taanis, L'may nafkamina? And the answer will be because it affects the days prior and the days post. And biblical Yomim Tovim don't affect days prior and post. How ironic, as sometimes, as Chazal say, that Divrei Torah ain't tzrichim chizuk. Divrei Soifrim tzrichim chizuk. So for people not to take rabbinic Yomim Tovim lightly, we have to add to it. So just B'derech Remes, today is the day after Chof Kislev. We got to celebrate today weiter. Divrei Soifrim tzrichim chizuk, to be continued.